How do, and welcome back. I've returned from my week's holiday in Portugal. I returned last week, about 8 days ago, but I just felt like I needed another week just to rest and just get back into the swing of things, you know. I couldn't take any video whilst I was in Portugal. I was expecting to have a day on my own whilst my wife went hiking, but it wasn't possible to book the tour, so I didn't get my day to myself, and I couldn't do any videoing or anything like that. So I'm ready for a beer, and the beer I'm going to try today is this Mangrove Jack's Classic Bitter. I've put it together, brewed it 2 weeks before I left for the holiday, and it was my intention to bottle it just before I left, in which case it would have been 2 weeks in the bottle, but I forgot. However, I did bottle it as soon as I got home, and so this has been about 9 days in the bottle now, and I've got some worries about it, so I'm gonna sample it and see what it tastes like. And as usual, the things what I'm worried about is the temperature. Yeah, as you may know, because I've said it I think in a couple of videos, I can't reduce temperature, I can only sort of elevate it, which is fine most of the year for where I live, but in the summer times that can be a problem. Now I thought I'd get away with it because we've been going through a cold snap. Some days it's only been 13 degrees, but on average it's been about 17 or 18 as a high, and I'm thinking, well, that's great, you know, good nice brewing temperature for ales. But for some reason inside the house, even with no heating on, it's 24, 26. So at least all the money I spent on insulation is working. I do know that, but obviously that's a bit on the high side for when you're home brewing. I brewed this, if you remember, with an expired Cali Common and the soon to be expired USO 5, and all the fruit flies have come out now I've opened this. They always do. Anyway, yeah, so they were pretty oldish yeasts. I used them both because I didn't know if the Cali Common was dead, but I thought I'll put it in anyway because it'll be nutrients even if it's dead. They're a bit cannibalistic yeasts, and they'll feed off the dead cells. I think it was dead because there was no sulphury smells coming during fermentation, and you do get that lagery sulphury smell with the California lager yeast. But the top temperatures of those yeasts are about the same. It's about 22 degrees, and this was fermenting at I think 24 to 26. So yeah, quite a lot above the highest tolerance range. But let's have a taste and see what it's oh, it smells nice. Let's see what it tastes like. I did review this about a year ago, and I said I wanted to revisit it, but I never got round, and I just thought it'd be a nice beer to put on before I went on holiday. Well, it's lagery, it's very light, it's fizzy. Nice little sort of white cap on the top there. Still needs another week at least in the bottles, but there is a fruitiness. You can tell there's something just not quite right with this beer. It's not offensive, it's just not in style. It is a lager. Australian bitters are lagers, and there's a little bit of a fruity taste. Also, the back end is a bit, I don't know, it's a bit astringent, it's a bit biting, whereas I don't think it was a year ago when I first tried this. So yeah, I think I've stressed the yeast a little bit too much. it's perfectly drinkable. It's not one I would give to a guest or a friend. But for me, just hanging around in the garage, and I just fancy a pint, it is perfectly acceptable. It's just got that telltale sign that the yeast must have been a bit stressed. I brewed it too high. Which leads me on to the next beer, because when I got back last week, the day after I had off work, and so I put another beer on. It's just an English pale ale, quite simple, dry malt extract with a light crystal for the specialty grains. So very simple, just one specialty grain, dry malt extract, and I used First Gold as the hop. Admiral for bittering, First Gold for flavour, and then I think it's called Celia hop for aroma. I wanted Styrian Golding, but for some reason Malt Miller, whenever you type in Styrian Golding, it always comes back with this silly hop. Anyway, I put that together. I brewed it about 9 days ago, and it's been fermenting away at about 28 degrees. For that I used, what yeast did I use? I just used Nottingham, and again that's got like a 22 high tolerance temperature, so I don't know what this is going to come out tasting like. It fermented in about 4 days, bang, it was done. And I haven't done a hydrometer reading yet, so I haven't had a taste, but yeah, I don't think that's going to be fantastic either. I do plan to start brewing again in a couple of weeks, and I think if the temperature inside the house is still, you're 24, you're 26, I'm just going to be using Kvike, and I'll just put some bitters on, some pale ales, my autumn beers, the beers I like to drink during the autumn time, and I'll just use Kvike yeast, because that insulation is a bit too good. And it's keeping too much heat inside the house. Don't they know I'm a home brewer? Anyway, this, yeah, it's all right. It's average. You can tell there's something. It not to be disrespectful, but it tastes like if it was your first home brew, if you know what I mean. Yeah, but not to worry. I'll drink it. It's not disgusting. Oh, just one more thing. I'm thinking of starting a new series, probably once a month, where I will buy a different beer style and obviously do a taste test, but talk about that beer style, because I find it interesting. How do we get these beers that we have today? How do we get all the styles? And it's really interesting when you start to dig into the history of these beers. There's a lot of myth around beer. Even something as simple as a lager. There's a lot of myths about lagers. Pilsner Urquell, the original pale lager. Was it really? Well, yes, because no other big brewery has challenged that claim. None of your Bavarian breweries have challenged that claim. Not your Spartan brewery, none of them. Except there is documentary evidence in a periodical, a German periodical from the 1820s, beer periodical, sort of like a beer magazine of the day. And they were listing beers available in Bavaria. And one was described as yellow lager, or actually they said wine yellow lager, which to me, wine yellow, maybe that means like a straw coloured lager beer, 15 years, 20 years before Pilsner Urquell. Now, what happened to that beer and who brewed it, we don't know. Didn't say what brewery it was. It just said this pale or straw coloured lager that was being brewed in Bavaria and available. I think it was probably a very small brewery, a regional family brewery that maybe went out of business, because Bavarian lagers were known and famous for being dark lagers, dunkels. Certainly at the time of Pilsner Urquell in the 1840s. In fact, right through up until the 1900s, it was, you know, fashionable to have a Bavarian lager as part of your offerings, as well as a Czech or a pale lager, and that's because the Bavarian lagers were dark. They were your dunkels. But there you go, there is documentary evidence to show that there was somebody in Bavaria, a brewer, brewing pale yellow lager 15 or 20 years before Pilsner Urquell. So was Pilsner Urquell the first? Well, that's just one of the things you find out, and I think it's fascinating. So, yeah, I'm thinking of starting this new series, once a month maybe, try a different beer style, and then do the research and bring these little tidbits and nuggets of information to you. But thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to drink this. It's not disgusting. It is quaffable, but like I say, it's like a very green, very as if it was like your first homebrew. so it's not bad. It's just, yeah, my temperatures were too high and you can taste it in the beer. But thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure, and as always, I'll see you again in the next video, when hopefully there'll be less of these fruit flies. Cheers.